Welcome to the Learning Quanta, and we are in Meet the Guest episode. And I'm your host, Madhurishinde. And today I have an interesting guest. He is Devesh Rajadhyax, a serial entrepreneur, and he runs an AI startup at the moment, which uses generative AI to solve business problems. I had met Devesh a year back in one of the conferences, and what caught my attention about Devesh was when I asked him, "What do you do?" He said, "I extract knowledge from information using generative AI." It's very rare that I come across such professionals who can explain generative AI or the application of AI with that simplicity. And that is the reason why I asked Devesh if he would come on my podcast and share his views on how to help businesses using generative AI. He is a CEO of Cere Labs. Anybody who wants to know more about Cere Labs can just Google it or Google Devesh Rajadhyax and you'll get plethora of information. He is an author. I read his book, Decoding GPT. And what I like about that book is, apart from coining some important concepts, technical concepts, which we'll talk about later, he explains the concept of AI and generative AI with regular examples, and that is what makes the book extremely precious. Welcome, Devesh, and thank you for your time to come on this podcast.
Yeah, hi, Madhuri. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me here. And AI is a subject which I love talking about. And I have been going to conferences, colleges, and even schools, to talk about AI. AI literacy is an important, concept now. It's a subject which is mired in a lot of hype, sometimes even misconceptions, a lot of hope as well. It will take a lot of people like me to talk about, like you said, in simple language, what AI actually is and how people can and companies can benefit from it. So, pleasure being here, and hope this discussion will be useful to our audience.
Definitely, Devesh. I will just shoot my first question to you. Tell us about your work in the generative AI space and your vision for Cere Labs. Because
Generative AI came on the scene at around 2017, 18, right? But AI has existed for a long, long time. We all know that it's more than 60 years old. I started Cere Labs around 10 years back now to focus on AI. In fact, the name Cere is short for cerebrum, which is Latin for brain, right? So we wanted to do things which, where we do human brain like things with software. Like generative AI started with, it didn't start with a bang. Not many people noticed when it came. We were already working on some things in, text processing that time. And so it caught our attention. That time we considered to be a part of NLP. Right, natural language processing is important part of AI, and so we thought of the early models as NLP models.
Mhm.
We were working on things like summarization and extraction, uh, creating questions on text, and these were some things that we were working on. And we realized that the power of the early models is very different from what we were doing earlier.
Mhm.
And then that went on for some time. Actually, 2020 was quite a watershed moment when GPT-3 became available. But somehow, we all were in the middle of the pandemic. We had our own problems surviving. I mean, a lot of companies had those things, right, in 2020 and 2021. So, we really couldn't give it the justice it deserved. Uh, but as 20, 2022, 23, when ChatGPT came on the scene, then everybody woke up. Yeah. So one thing that happened is, yes, people got an access to a chatbot which is so human-like. If you remember those days,
Yeah, yeah.
then likes of that people had never seen before. But for us also, what happened is that the API which is something that we use in our programs, to the ChatGPT model also became available easily. And so then, we started realizing that, this is something that is transformative for industry, and it's something that is completely, is totally a level above over what we were doing earlier. And that's the time when we took the decision to become a GenAI first or a LLM first, large language models first company. Many companies like us took that decision that time. So it has been about now 2 years working on generative AI. So our DNA hasn't changed. We have always been a company which helps enterprises to use AI. But we feel that our job has become easier now. And so with generative AI, a lot of things that we want to do and the industry wants to do have just become easier. Generative AI is truly changing the way people work and companies work. And as Cere Labs, we want to have our place in this transformation.
Yeah, I get your point, and I think you have answered my next question, which was around what motivated you for generative AI, and I got a beautiful answer from you already. Another thing is more specific to your business, like you have been catering to the finance, healthcare, and pharma segment a lot. So, what do you think has been the most transformation impact of AI in these industries?
Got it. So, I'll talk about AI, but I'll focus more about how generative AI is changing things.
Yeah.
Because there is a difference what I
Yeah.
have seen, right? So, okay. So let's start with this. Using AI has not been easy for the companies, for the enterprises. If you take, finance, so finance was the first to adopt AI because of the simple reason that finance has a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
And earlier AI, like machine learning, right? So was more about numbers. So finance companies adopted AI early. They did things like decision making. They work with a lot of money. They have to take difficult decisions, giving loans, and what kind of things, detecting frauds. These are the areas where AI was applied. Machine learning was applied. Let us say a part of AI, right? But other industries did not find it so easy. You will see examples like manufacturing industries putting systems for what we call as predictive maintenance. That listening to the sound and temperature of a machine, AI was able to predict when the machine will break down. But all these things were, not very, they did not proliferate as they should. And so, in my experience, AI remained a thing to talk about, but not so much implemented because of various reasons. I'll just tell you one reason is that, when it comes to training the models, which was the, how do you say, the method earlier, you have to train your own model. That's the hard thing to do. You have to collect a lot of data. The training takes time, and you come to know whether it's going to work or not only after the training is over. And generally companies don't have that much patience, bandwidth, and support. So many AI projects used to remain in pilot stage, POC stage, but not many actually went into production. So that was the state of play earlier. But generative AI, and in specifically, I will use this word, which probably in the last 2 weeks we have heard a lot: foundation models. Everybody is talking. India should make foundation model. So, in particular, foundation model change, this whole scenario. The reason is simple: that foundation models are pre-trained. You don't usually have to train them. Companies like OpenAI and Google and DeepSeek, they train models, yes. But as users, we talk about finance, we talk about healthcare, they don't have to train it. They just take it and they use it. And that changed a whole lot of things. Suddenly the ROI became better. We can now show results in a few days. People, like, you go to ChatGPT and you just start using it. You don't train ChatGPT, right? So that's a simple way of understanding it. And now we turn to the impact part. First, I spoke about why these differences come. Second is the impact. See, first, generative AI is impacting areas where language and knowledge is important, matter. So you will see some areas which you can straight away identify, like training.
Yeah.
Training is one area where knowledge is obviously important.
Yeah.
Most of these industries that we mentioned face a lot of new hiring and turnover of people.
Yeah.
And their growth is directly proportional to the expertise of their employees. So training is one area which directly comes to mind when we talk about language and knowledge. But then there are many other areas like decision making, for example, which requires certain type of knowledge. Decision making requires how do you compare things, pros and cons, a lot of knowledge. GenAI is able to produce that knowledge based on all the information that you have already. So these are the areas where a lot of impact is being done. Research is another area. You mentioned pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
So there, that the cost of creating a new drug is huge. Very few companies across the world are actually able to afford the money that is required, and AI and the time. It takes years and years to actually come up with a new drug, and AI is expected and is already demonstrating to some extent. We saw that at the time of the vaccine, mRNA vaccine during COVID, how the time to discover new drugs is coming down. So these are some areas that quickly come to my mind, and but it's a very, very open question which you asked.
Yeah. Do you think, from your experience, data analytics and predictive analytics will play, because that's what I see, will play a great role in legal? As you said, plethora of information is there, and people have to, again, extract knowledge from the information. Do you think that will be a very, very big industry in itself?
These capabilities, capabilities of prediction, classification, and generation. These are the three foundational capabilities in the AI system. They actually lie at the heart of most of the things that we do. So you took an example of legal. So when you think of a judgment being made, right, the primary task of a legal system is to give judgment. It is actually a classification, right? When they pronounce guilty or not guilty, it's a one or zero. That's called classification in AI. Prediction is at the heart of so many things that you do. Imagine this, that you have a lawyer and a client comes to the lawyer and says, here is my case. I have been wrongly charged this tax or something. What does the lawyer do? The lawyer has to find previous instances where these things happened, right? So this is called recommendation. It's the same thing that you experience when you watch YouTube or Netflix, and they show you similar things. These are the things that are similar to what. Of course, they give a different twist. So these are the things that you will like. But you can join the dots, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So when the lawyer faces a situation, these capabilities are able to pull out things from the past. Say, here are some things that you did or others did in the past. Of course, this used to be done manually earlier, and even today it is done manually. But you can imagine that technology can be a big help. So when we talk about predictive analytics, or other, they're the core things, okay? And we must connect them to things that will be actually useful. like a lawyer finding things which are similar, right? Or a judge is able to. So we are not talking about AI giving the decision of guilty or not guilty.
Okay.
Right? That is always going to be done by a human being. But we are talking about AI, or a system that uses AI, creating the supporting material,
Yeah.
right? From all the turns of, that the some of these litigations, they run for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So over these years, they create huge amount of information in terms of documents and other things, evidence.
Yeah.
And you require a data analytics technology such as AI to help human beings so that they are able to decide. So this is how I would like to connect, your point about analytics and actually delivering, uh, tasks, delivering useful things to people.
Yeah, I think Devesh, you have touched upon a very important point when you say the delayed justice or the delayed legal, cases. If it can be expedited, it is not just AI. It is going to solve a very big problem for society, and I think and again there I see a constructive use of AI, but again it is up to us whether we do a constructive or destructive use. But I think you have touched upon an extremely important point. Another, before I think you've already covered my next question, so I'll just add one more point. Since I come from learning and development and EdTech, one of the things that we have been trying to touch upon is personalization, adaptive learning, how Netflix recommends shows. Similarly, based on the learner profiles, learner preferences, we recommend them through learning technology, the learning path, the courses. And I think you already touched upon the recommendation engine and how recommendations happen. So I think anybody from EdTech or the learning industry who would be watching this show, I think Devesh has touched upon an important point, which can become a takeaway for you. I'll just, move ahead. We've talked about a lot of constructive use of AI. You've been telling us the industries, different industries, how even traditional industries, something like legal, is going to use AI. My next question, like from your perspective, what are the most common roadblocks? Like if anybody decides, any company decides that I have to implement AI or generative AI effectively, what do you think are the common roadblocks and how can companies overcome them?
Yes. Uh, it's interesting to talk about the roadblocks because actually they are so simple. Roadblocks are not hard now. In fact, it is a bit counterintuitive when you think about how easy it is to use AI. Uh, you know, but the expectations are actually something that comes in between. So the expectations from AI are actually too high, right? So this is it was Ray Kurzweil who spoke about the AI effect. And what is AI effect? I'm sure you have heard about it. It's like the moment something becomes known, it is no longer AI. So he described like how the chess playing computer in 1997 and 8, was a cutting edge AI that time, and it beat the then human chess champion Kasparov. But today we don't consider that as AI because it is so well known, right? So the thing is, today if you see in the industry something that is easily available, like for example a language processing model, it is so easily available, and wonderful things can be done with it. Something as simple as summarization can be so useful in so many things that we do. It suffers from the AI effect. This is not AI because you know this is I call it the Chat GPT effect. So say how it is different from Chat GPT. This is
Yeah.
this is even done. So the expectation that AI should always do some things which are beyond our imagination, and simple things is not probably worth. So that's the first thing that we come across, as practitioners who try and convince industries to use AI. We see that there are a lot of people who are forever chasing something that is higher than what is easily available. That's the thing. Second thing is again a very interesting thing where uh, the way of doing things in AI is a little different. Okay. And the users have to actually adapt to these different way of doing things. So today, industries used to what I call as classical software, which is all the software that you see around, which is created by writing programs, right? And programs are, and this is what I explained in the first chapter of my book, right? Programs are basically nothing but a sequence of rules, instructions. And so the software that we see today is able to accomplish things which can be solved by an algorithm, a sequence of instructions. And everybody has got used to that, that a software program will always deliver certain result, working with a certain fixed input, right? So if you enter something in a software program, you expect something to happen, and that always happens, unless the program has a problem which can be fixed. But AI is what we call as a probabilistic system, right? AI cannot be correct, okay? Because correct doesn't have any correspondence in probability. AI uses statistics, right? It's a statistical method, so it can predict, right? Can you expect a prediction to be correct? Otherwise, it won't be a prediction, right? So AI cannot do correct things. Okay, AI is good at guessing, like human being. This is where AI and human beings are, quite similar. Though human beings are far right. That's a different thing. That both are good at guessing. Even human beings are not good at, doing rule-based things. We are not good at calculating, for example. Can you multiply 2 4-digit numbers? No.
Not everyone.
You can't, and I can't. Yeah, very few people. Right? Calculator can do it very easily. Right? But we can recognize a face so easily from a far off distance, even with a little bit of a fog in between. We recognize people, but we are guessing. Right. So this is something where AI and human beings are humans are really, really good. AI is trying to catch up, but that's where something that software cannot do, and AI, this is where AI is used. But the industry is not used to guessing, right? Industry is looking for things where, imagine that AI is being used to read from a document, like an invoice. It's a very popular use case. And obviously the user will say that I want 100% correct every time. Okay, and that is not going to happen. Right. So this is where the different way of doing things, and maybe we'll talk about a little later, when the right discussion is going on. But this is the roadblock again, to learn the new way of doing things. Then there are those things, of course, two things which are well known. The first is lack of talent. And I'm not only talking about, when you say talent, you will immediately start thinking about people who can code or make models. And yes, that is there, but also people who understand the use of AI, and who can become the bridge between the tech and the the applications. So that is also, those people are also not that many. Because this is where you require domain as well. Just learning how models work is not enough, right? So this is another reason. And then comes the fear and uncertainty. So AI, by its very nature, not only today, throughout its history, has always invoked fear, because it tries to do something that human beings do. And now it is doing things like language and vision, which we consider as our forte. So human beings are naturally afraid of AI. So that's another thing, that if industries have to implement AI on a larger scale, they also have to take care of allaying the fears, and
Yeah,
having the people, everybody's buy-in and so on. So that also is a, so these are a few things that there are many, but
yeah,
major things which I have
yeah, yeah.
experienced.
Yeah. So I'll just, summarize because some points which are especially takeaway. The first one is clarity of thought on what we want from AI. And what I see, and you raised a bit, and that's why I gave a big broad smile. What I see is people are expecting it to do something magical or do something out of the world, rather than focusing on some use cases where human beings are struggling or probably taking more time. And even like you, I've been advocating that find out those use cases which will help human being, to speed up their work or maybe, refine their work. I think that point you raised. Second thing, which is of my personal interest, is talent. And you see that there is a lot of scope for industries to invest time in grooming and nurturing the right talent. It can be through learning initiatives, it can be through um, EdTech or anything. And I see a great scope for tech companies to come up for building the right talent for this the AI age, AI and generative AI age. Third thing that I see is skill gap. So we are in an age where we are seeing a lot of skill gap, and I think we would also need professionals who will understand that skill gap properly, and then professionals like you who would probably educate people in your AI domain. And last thing which you touched upon very well was fear, you know fear of losing to AI. And I always say we always need to have a human edge, empathy, our human qualities. We can't do away with it. My next question is on scalability, data privacy, and bias. But I think some of that bit you have covered in the earlier discussion. But then a simple question like being an AI startup and a serial entrepreneur in software products, how do you think uh, solution providers as well as businesses can address the scalability, data privacy, and bias issue that especially generative AI raises?
There are different measures, right? And they have to be done at different levels.
Yeah.
Okay, because not everything can be addressed by the user of AI. Some things have to be addressed by the creators of AI, the people who train models. Because as we said, the now the best practices have moved in a direction where most companies use models which are already there,
Hmm.
and there are a lot of them, right?
Hmm.
And the last I checked, there were some 1.3 million models on Hugging Face,
Yeah.
which is the open source, repository of open source models. So there are a lot of models there. So we have a lot of choice, right? But the model makers have to take care of some things when they train the model, right? Which is basically the training data and something. Of course, when the users start using the models, they can in turn, do things like guard railing, right?
Okay.
Which essentially means, simply means that uh, you prevent the model from giving answers which you don't want the model to give, or creating content which is objectionable or biased in some way. See, remember that the bias in models is coming from the bias in our data.
Yeah.
Right? So models themselves are neither biased or prejudiced, but they just learn from the data. We need to make sure that the right samples are given to the model, which are free of bias. Okay? But not all this can be done at the end user level, and that's where the regulations are coming into play. And as you pointed out, the skill gap, or where people need to get trained. this is another good area for people to educate themselves. What are the regulations which are happening in the area of AI?
Yeah, yeah,
In You have heard that European Union has
yeah.
already put up a regulation which is quite stringent, and then US has something, and and many countries are catching up. India is also going on that same path. So any regulation tends to overcorrect, but then over a few iterations, we should hope that some of these things will be avoided. Data privacy considerations are not very different from the data privacy considerations of any other cloud system,
Yeah.
right? AI is a cloud system; it is nothing different.
Mhm.
So, most of the organizations have, pretty good mechanisms to handle data confidentiality and privacy for the cloud systems that they use.
Mhm.
Except one thing that I have seen mentioned a lot, that most organizations are worried that their data will be used to train the models. You
Yeah,
Uh, so, this is obviously not true in case of open source models, right? Models are of two types. Open source is something that you take, host on your computer, and use it. Okay. So obviously nothing is, no, nothing is training the model. Nobody is taking away that model or your data. But the second type is the closed source models, where you call, you make a call to models like OpenAI or Google and so on. So that is where your data actually goes to the model. However, very good mechanisms are in place. They are put in place by companies like Microsoft and Google and others, which assure you that your data will not be used for training. The only data that they use for training is what they collect through their free offering. So if you use the free version of ChatGPT, then yes, you are actually accepting that your data can be used for training the model. But if you are using it as an industry on an enterprise level, then they assure you that that's not happening. Otherwise, all other considerations remain the same as what you use Google Mail, or any other Outlook. Your data is going to someone else, right? So it is, after all, what is an email server? It's a computer hosted by someone else in some data center. So your mail is actually stored by them. We don't think about it because you know it is so usual. So I have, and actually that's the reason, like the education is required in this, because whatever is familiar, we don't think that there is any confidentiality involved. So most of the industries are worried that their data will go outside, while a lot of employees are actually using the free versions of ChatGPT. So, these things are on the other side of the spectrum, and I think education is the way, which that's a tool which again will come into play.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you because the moment the term AI or generative AI gets added, there are extremes. Either people are too free about using it, or either they're too scared about everything. So I think I agree with you that we definitely need education, because whenever I have spoken in open forums or public forums about I get questions which come straight out of Hollywood or Bollywood movies about AI and robots.
True.
And
The Terminator.
yeah, so it's like AI will take over. So I mean, just once somebody asked that AI will take over, robots will take over, I said it's human created thing. So learn to hack it and put it in the self-destructive mode. So on a lighter note. Thanks, Devesh. And now my next question, since you've touched upon several items on how businesses can use it, how privacy can be there, what considerations do you think as a solution provider, or even if a business has to implement, that they have to do if they have to use generative AI in their product? So how does the product roadmap with generative AI is different from the other software products which we used to, build earlier?
It is not that different, actually. Uh, I'll uh, give you a framework, here, how something that we have been using for consulting companies on how they should use AI, because we do only AI, but this should be a more generic thing. is that there are essentially three things in this framework. So the first is the objective. What do you want to achieve? Everything else comes later. Okay. And generally, by objective, what I mean is what is the problem that you are trying to solve? Problem always precedes solution. You don't want to be a person who is going with a hammer in your hand, uh, in search of nails. So, so the problem, the objective is basically what you want to achieve. Do you want to save cost? Do you want to serve your clients better, or do you want to train your employees better? That's an objective which the business has to drive. Business leaders have to decide. Okay? So that's the first thing. Then second is what is the readiness? So earlier the readiness was more in terms of data. So when we talk about earlier AI, it was completely data centric. So we needed a lot of data to train models. So the readiness was more in terms of data. But now you should think of it not only data, because data requirement have come down, but also in terms of readiness of your digital systems, of your people, and all that. And the third piece which comes in the technology. Now, what is the a particular technology within AI is you are going to use to solve that problem. Okay. So suppose your problem is, as I said, serving customers better. Then probably what is the problem you are trying to solve, that your customer facing people may not know things in detail. So how can we help them? Okay, we can help them through AI by giving them assistants, right? And then assistants can in turn use a lot of knowledge which is already created, right? But then here readiness will mean that knowledge should be there somewhere. If you want to help your front facing agents, but you don't have any knowledge written down anywhere, right, and you are dependent on people learning informally and serving the customers,
Yeah.
there is not much AI can do to help you in this use case. Your attention should first go to create that
Knowledge base.
repository from somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, AI can help you in doing that. That's another thing. It can help you to mine knowledge from your different things that you already have. That's a different thing. But this is how you need to assess your the use cases that you are going to. But they should always be, and I'll probably insist on this more than once, that they should always start with a problem which should be valuable enough. You don't want to solve a problem
Yeah.
which is not really worth it with AI or with anything else, because even if you solve it, it is not going to be adapted.
Yeah,
Uh,
because the impact is important. It is like if something is not a problem, and if you're using AI just as a fancy tool, just to say that, okay, I used AI to do this, the
yes,
first question will be,
yes.
why did you use AI?
This is the framework that I would like to press into use, where businesses first assess their objectives, okay, then assess the readiness, and then talk about a particular technology in AI. AI has a large number of technologies to offer, and there are other technologies which work along with AI. Only AI is not obviously going to solve anything. You also require the hardware, you require engineering, you require integration. All these things are required together, but they should serve the right purpose.
Yeah.
So whether you are a entrepreneur trying to build solution, or you are a business trying to use the solution, uh, these are the things that you have to consider.
Yeah. And I think there is another good takeaway I see for businesses over here from your discussion is knowledge base. Any business who has a strong knowledge management in place, they probably would benefit a lot from AI and generative AI because everything will already be harnessed. Legacy companies, traditional companies, which are thriving and surviving only because of their USPs, certain USPs in their product that they have. But somewhere, the knowledge harnessing is needed, the knowledge management is needed, rather than just jumping on the bandwagon of AI. I mean,
Absolutely. So yeah, so Basically, I talk about what I call as the knowledge supply gap.
Yeah.
That you know about it better. That on one side there are people who need the knowledge, and on other side there may be a lot of information stored somewhere. Okay, but the pipeline which connects these two, uh, is not there, because the way people want the knowledge. I'll give you an example, something that we are doing with our customers, is that when you have people who are working on the shop floor, or you have people who are into such tasks like maintaining machines and so on, the large fat manuals, and those are that is source, but it is not knowledge. It's a source of information, but it's not a knowledge that they can use. It is very hard to convert that knowledge, that source, into the knowledge, because it requires a lot of resources to do that, right? And this is where generative AI is playing a big role. It can actually pull out knowledge automatically, maybe with some human curation and correction, and even convert that into audio and video, which, as you would agree, is the medium of choice for most people now. So they find it much easier to consume an audio or something that they can watch. uh, so organizations need to think in terms of knowledge management, where the knowledge supply piece is provided by AI, but there is no substitute to collecting the knowledge, right? It has to come from somewhere.
Wonderful. I think this was another piece of information and a lot of takeaways for whoever is watching the video. Because prepare, and prepare before you launch. It's as simple as that. Next question, Devesh, I think is is something which I'm pretty excited about, is the term that you coined, open loop of ML. So could you just enlighten us?
So yeah, it was a series of articles that I wrote on towards data science to share my experience of working in AI for quite some time. The So I'll just give an example to start with. When ChatGPT became famous by the like in January February 2023, right, 2 years back, I remember writing a post on LinkedIn, which said that the mantle of the flagship use case of AI has now passed from self-driving car to ChatGPT. So everywhere earlier, when somebody said AI, the first example which used to be given was the self-driving car. Okay, but now ChatGPT is, or other such systems, maybe now DeepSeek R1, they are the flagship use cases. But there is a reason for that. We have been talking about the self-driving car, autonomous car for more than 20 years, but I haven't seen yet one yet. Okay. Maybe people in California have seen, but certainly they are not common. But everybody uses ChatGPT every day. Right? The reason for that is that in an autonomous car, even one mistake is not allowed. Right? So, but in a ChatGPT can make mistakes. In fact, it writes very proudly at the bottom. If if you read that, it's an AI model and it can make mistakes. So, but you don't mind. But you will definitely not get into a car which says that this is an AI car and it can make mistakes. I'm sure you're not getting into that car. So,
I am not
so
getting it.
this, so this is where the open loop of ML, comes from. That for any application, there is a certain accuracy that you need.
Mhm.
Like in an autonomous car, any car, the accuracy required is 100%. You don't want 99% accuracy in a car or in a aeroplane. And there is a certain accuracy that the system can supply. right? Maybe the system can supply 95% accuracy, right? But the thing is, accuracy itself is a deceptive term.
Mm.
Okay? So I'll give you two examples. Suppose you are getting tested for some, disorder. Okay, uh, you don't the testing machine doesn't have to be accurate. Okay, no machine can be accurate, but you are fine if the machine errs on the side of caution. It says that you have a problem, even if you don't have it, it's okay. Like what happened in COVID, we all know how there are many false positives. We're okay with that, but you don't want the other thing, right? Don't want the machine not detecting when you actually have the disorder, right? So in terms of accuracy, a machine may be 99.99% accurate, but it might just miss that, one case which it should have detected, right? So accuracy is, something that you have to always judge in light of what you want. Second, then you have to also take into consideration the cost of error. I give another example of a face detection system which automatically opens the door, right? This has got a very high accuracy. Fine. Imagine that it has got a high accuracy. You go there, you are an employee, and it recognizes you and it opens the door. Also marks your attendance. Good. But it can make mistakes sometime. Right? It can make two kinds of mistakes. One is it can open door to a stranger, or it may not open door to a legal, authentic person. Imagine that person is your CEO, who comes and stands in front of the door and it doesn't open. This machine is making some small mistake, right? You don't want definitely that mistake to happen, right? You don't want your CEO not able to get in because your AI is making one mistake in 1,000.
Definitely.
So what do? So you don't leave this AI to itself. You also appoint a person, in case something like that happens. Now, the cost of appointing that person is what I call as cost of compensation, CC, right? And so the real way of evaluating AI system is not accuracy, but the cost of compensation. That's basically the theory behind open loop of ML, that you cannot leave a loop open in a practical system, especially in the enterprise system. Right? Now there is a and the day I was thinking about this, I was listening to a video, a speech by Sundar Pichai, talking, making new announcements that Google AI has about what Google AI is doing. One of which was that there is an app, which you can, you go to a restaurant with friends and you get a bill, right, a check, and you scan that bill, and it divides the amount within the friends automatically.
Yeah.
Right? It's a simple. Now today this will not be even considered AI, right? But this was like 5 years back or something. So, and then I suddenly realized that what if the machine makes a mistake? It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter because there is a human in the loop. They are still going to, make sure that they are not paying 5,000 rupees when the bill is 500 rupees. They are always going to, do the right thing. But the same thing is not possible when you have an enterprise system, right? Because in enterprise system, when you use such a any AI capability, it has to have a certain required accuracy for that particular application. So they're always going to add compensation. That's what the theory is about.
So that's an interesting perspective. Again, aligned to return of investment also, which ROI, a lot of people talk about. So when they think of, implementing AI and getting a ROI, they have to think about this CC as well, cost to compensation. I think at a conceptual level, I also see this as a best example of human plus AI. Like both need to be there to, get the best out of each other. rather than
Yes.
replace each other. So there are two things that I see is a takeaway, and especially I personally like this term of cost of compensation, the way you have explained, because that really aligns to a lot of commercial decisions that would be taken. Next, what I want to ask is, what is it that you do in your product so that you ensure that there is a good human experience?
So, what I believe and what most a lot of people believe is that AI is a good assistant. Right? In fact, uh, the way I would explain to students sometimes is that when we talk about how AI is going to change their life, of course, the young students are uh, going to have a lot of impact on their life, right? So, so what was the impact of mobile on people's lives? Think about it. The main impact is that everyone is now always connected, right? Which was not the case only a few years before. You never psychologically you never thought like that, right? But mobiles brought a socio psychological change that you are always available and always connected. So what is the change that AI is going to bring? It is everyone always have an assistant. Okay, so that's the impact that today we don't feel it, but the the young people as they grow up, they are going to take this for granted that you always have an assistant. Okay, so we have to think of AI in terms of an assistant, no matter what you are doing. Okay, there are areas where humans are weak, and there are areas where humans are strong. Okay, and where they are weak, we are going to be augmented with the AI. Like a good example is we are not very good at reading a 100-page document. Most people won't even start it. Right? What 100 pages? I won't even start reading a 20-page document. Right? So AI is good at research, okay, but human beings are very, very good at connecting the dots.
Hmm.
So just giving an example. Uh, so a lot of areas where humans are not very good are going to be augmented with AI. Okay, and now I come back to your question with this background that what we are trying to do in our not only our product but also when we consult companies and help them to implement AI systems is uh, how to think in terms of HI, you know, hybrid intelligence. So this is a new term that some research papers have now started using. You know, some time back I wrote on innovation with generative AI, how generative AI can be used for, and there, it's completely based on hybrid intelligence, where human and AI do a to and fro, to find a innovative solution to the problem. Right. First of all, identifying the problem and then finding the solution. So, that's what we are trying to do. Even uh, people who are at the forefront of AI, if you hear them talk about it's the best way of utilizing AI, they will use different terminology, but it will basically revolve around AI being assistant, AI, human in loop, or hybrid AI. So you will. It's the same thing that we are also doing with our products, no matter what application we may be working on.
Yeah, I think that's a important thing that you highlighted about being an assistant, because I remember when we had done a little bit implementation in instructional design, that is, learning content creation. And that's where I said you'll have a virtual assistant who will do your job like a fresher will do, create a first draft,
Right.
but you can't just pass it on that first draft. You'll have to, revise it, go through it. improve it. You talked about the businesses, the data privacy, the fears, and then, how you are ensuring human experience. Probably I would move to the guidance part. So, what would be your advice to the entrepreneurs who are trying to get into the AI or generative AI space? How should they prepare?
If you see the landscape, of startups, companies starting in AI, generative AI, two, three things you see that they are doing. Okay, the most popular ones, of course, are building the models, right? So, whenever a new model is introduced, it gets a lot of attention always. So that is one thing that some of the companies are doing. OpenAI started it, and now you have a lot of people following in those footsteps. Uh, the second are using the models to build applications. So there are a lot of companies who don't train their own model, like us, for example, but we use models which are available to build some application. And third are those people who are system integrators who provide services, consulting. This is also an important, very important area uh, because enterprises need to understand what's right for them. Uh, all these are attractive areas to work, and every domain has their every area has its own rules. So if you want to make models, you need to be that kind of people, first of all, because it's not everybody's cup of tea. It requires a lot of mathematics, deep concepts. You should have access to those kind of people who are not many, right? You should have access to a large amount of funding, and so those are the rules of that game. If you want to build applications, my advice will be that you have to build something that is deep into a domain. Okay, if it is not deep enough, there is a risk, and the risk is that AI models, by the if you follow the trend, they are becoming more and more general purpose, right? So suppose you have a product which uh, does something which is not very domain dependent. It is something that is fairly common. Then it is possible that there is a free model somewhere which directly does what you're doing, right? So if you have built your startup around providing that, then it's possible that a free model comes and replaces it. But if you have built something which is, understanding the flows of the domain, finance, maybe healthcare or whatever, then it's not possible for a single model to really replace it. So we have to keep in mind that AI is becoming more and more general purpose, and take that into account while building the products. And third, services, of course, we know the rules that we need to have experts in the field. We should be, able to understand the problems, provide. Which means that we need to have a combination of people who understand technology, who understand what AI continuously kept. But we are already familiar with IT services companies which are pretty good at this. So those roles are well known. So these are some areas. Generally, startups will go for the first two types. Either they will get into hardcore model building kind of a things, though in India that is a little lesser proportion. The second type is the most popular, where we build applications, products based on the models which are available.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, you're right. Even I saw the surge of the second part where, people are using popular models like GPT, Llama, and others to build
Right.
an application and sometimes focusing on solving one use case, sometimes general purpose. That was a
Yes.
wonderful piece of advice for anybody who's trying to start up. Another thing is for, let's say there are seasoned professionals who are used to do things in their own old way, but now to stay relevant, in the industry, they have to learn technology, what do you think, how should they start, or what is the kind of mindset they need to have?
Everybody is going to have an assistant, and so everybody needs to recognize what are the areas in which can be given to the assistant, and what are the areas where they are themselves needed. If you take, for example, a chartered accountant, okay, then today the chartered accountant may be doing a range of tasks, including entering some data or reading from somewhere, referring to things. But he or she really needs to think where what can be done by the AI assistant, and where the human cognitive power is required. Maybe making those tax planning decisions, or advising people on considering that. So those are the areas where probably the CAs never had time to do that, because they were also doing everything else. So we all need to think about it. Like, take programmers in my own field, right? When I started, you spoke about those software products that I have created. Some of those I created by hand. Earlier, you know we were only a 2-3 people company that time. We were working in medical imaging, and I was doing the coding, right? So using those programming languages of that time, uh, and the only help I had was a manual supplied by Microsoft, on a CD, what they used to call as the MSDN network that time. So, uh, right. So that time, programmers' attention was on syntax, how to write something, and so on. Today, that is not required. Nobody does that, right? Now, with the generative AI models, you have to only tell the model what code you want, and the model generates it. But do you think that is the that means programmer is not required? No. So programmers have still to do those things where they need to understand the requirements, and we understand what to tell the model, what to generate. This is where this. Remember that this line is being pushed every day. So something that you had to do yesterday, but today you don't have to do that. You have another model to do it. But we need to understand what's that circle of core competency where we are going to be needed. So all of us have to do that. Doctors, engineers, and lawyers, everybody, teachers. So maybe teaching in the class may not be required going ahead, right? So this is maybe I'm talking about 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
But today, most of the teachers' time goes into delivering instruction, right? So that is what teachers are supposed to do. But teacher is much more than that, right? The delivering instruction is today, there is no alternative. That's why they are doing it. But teacher is also supposed to create knowledge. They are supposed to counsel student. They are supposed to do course corrections. They are supposed to plan. But where do you find a teacher who does that? All these things, because there is no time. And why there is no time? Because instruction is the most voluminous activity in any school, college, or institution.
Yeah.
Right. So as the tasks which are possible to be done by your assistant are being delegated, this should not leave a void in your life, because you associated yourself with the task that you were doing. Should not associate ourselves with the task, I'll repeat, and look forward to actually delegating things to assistant, going to the higher cognitive levels.
Experienced professionals can focus more on the value. What is the value that
Yes.
they are bringing with their own human skills and higher order skills. Same is with the teacher. I think that is an important takeaway. And Devesh, I'll shoot a last question to you, which probably is close to my heart, being a teacher once. What what is your advice to students, any student who is either preparing to be a AI or generative AI professional, or who is planning to use AI or generative AI in their regular workflow?
I'll talk more about people who want to get into the Gen AI industry. The most important thing for them is to find where they belong. AI is a spectrum, and not everybody is going to do the same thing. Just like IT, right? IT is a as a learning and development leader. You know that the most important thing is to make sure that the student fits the spectrum right. You know, so there are going to be jobs which are hyper conceptual, mathematical, and so on. Like we we just use the term data scientist loosely, and a scientist is not something that you become up with a 6 months course. So 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 a data scientist is obviously much more than this. Data scientists are people who discover principles from data, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's obviously a very hard thing to do, but there is a place for those people, few people. Just like we saw a few days back, a model called DeepSeek R1 was introduced. Okay, and there is a lot of hype about it, but I'll not ignore that and focus on just one thing: is that they use certain algorithms, which reduce the need of using expensive hardware.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not that this algorithm came out of a void. Right? Those algorithms are based on certain algorithms that existed before.
Mhm.
So any person who does that need to understand what algorithm existed earlier, and then modify them to and this is not a process that happens in one day. You do some things and that doesn't work, and you keep on working on it. It requires a certain type of person, and not everybody is that, right? So some people will find their place here, and some people will find their place in becoming more of engineers who apply the existing techniques. They are good at studying techniques, and how it can be applied to a given problem. There are people who are going to work a lot in evaluating AI as the AI regulations come in. You know, evaluation will become important, and that itself will spawn certain requirement for people, like testers. What you would have testers, but different capacity. Also, don't forget that any technology gives rise to a kind of anti industry as well. So the moment you have IT, you also have cyber security, because there are people who are hacking IT systems, and so you also need people, right? So there are programmers, and there are people who make sure that systems are not, the programs are not hacked into. Similarly, once you have your models and systems start working on uh, AI technology, you will also have people who try to hack into it. And so you are going to have teams who are going to prevent them from doing that. So this anti industry is also going to be big. So people will need to find their place into these different places according to their, and that's something that is very important. Okay. To again, when I come back to our talks on AI literacy and talking to students, etc., it's very important that we don't keep talking about the big picture, that AI will transform or AI will take over or whatever, which can be left to the, people who are good at talking such things. But for the students, they need to just treat AI as a technology, like any other technology, something that can be created, something that can be used, and something that can be repaired. And all these things require expertise. Students need to acquire that. So I would advise the students to cut through all these high level things that they see, focus on whatever part of this they like. If they like mathematics, great. Then there is a lot of place for them to go into the model building and fine tuning and all those areas. If they like, data like things, then using the model for data analytics, for predictions, all these things. Many things are available. This may not be the right time to discuss it, but I'm just putting up this framework of this being a spectrum, students finding their ways on that spectrum so that they can make the right career.
And you made a very wonderful point that cut through the noise. Rather than focusing on solving one simple problem, even students may start thinking of a really big thing like changing the world. But those taking those small steps, building things, and you are a perfect example because you started with some small product where you solved one problem, and gradually today you are the founder and CEO of Cere Labs, and I think you yourself are a good case study for a lot of students to follow. Extremely good piece of advice, Devesh, and thank you for your time. That was all that I had to ask you. And for the audience, this was Devesh Rajadhyaksha, who is the founder and CEO of Cere Labs, and he graciously accepted to be on this Learning Quanta Meet the Guest episode to share his experience, his views on the topic that he has been working day and night. Hope you will like this discussion and learn a lot from it. Do like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and stay happy. Bye.